A bunch of you guys have been getting in touch and letting me know how much you enjoyed the slider set I posted, which is awesome. But an equal number of you have been asking if there's any updates, and there are a few updates that I've made to the slider set, and I'm going to share them with you today. There are only 4 changes to make, so not a big overhaul of the slider set by any means, but they are quite important changes, and they do change the way that the game plays fairly significantly. So let's jump into the settings and take a look. Now, the first thing to note is that there are no changes to any of the settings. I've only adjusted the sliders. So everything in match settings, camera settings, visual audio, all of that remains from the previous video. However, there are 4 sliders total that need to be adjusted. 2 of those apply to both the user and the CPU. The first of which is run frequency. So this needs to be increased by 15 points up to 35 from 20. And this just increases the amount of ambition both teams will have in attack. AI teammates and the CPU players will venture forward more. They'll make more frequent runs forward, obviously, as the slider suggests, and it just creates a bit more of a variety of passing from each team as well. So bump this up slightly and you should see a few more attacking games and less possession-based football. Although it is, of course, still possible to keep the ball when you want to. And custom tactics can, of course, still be applied to kind of dictate that. The second slider you will want to change for both the user and the CPU is line height. And you want to bump this up a massive 28 points from 62 all the way up to 90. This seems like a fairly drastic measure and quite an extreme value, but it is easily the most impactful of these changes that I have made. And it impacts the game in a really positive way. It means that teams will enact their defensive game plan much higher up the pitch, and that starts with players in forward positions taking up their defensive shape in forward areas of the field. However, it does also mean that when players find themselves in those positions, they're going to press far more intensely. They're not going to give you time on the ball to kind of maneuver around the field, to pick a pass. They're going to press you intensely, they're going to press you relentlessly, and they're going to steal the ball away from you if they can. And this is obviously very good for realism. I found myself with the previous value having far too much time to just play the ball around my... it's a back 5 that I use in my particular career mode series, but to play the ball across my back line almost kind of at will. I had all the time and the space in the world to do that. You just don't see players getting that much time on the ball when you sit down and watch a real football match. And this much higher value, much more realistically mimics the kind of pressing that you see in real football. Now, this doesn't mean that you will never be able to play the ball out from the back. Teams will press you high, but you can absolutely still play your way through that press. It just means that you need to be more patient, you need to be more measured in your build-up, you need to really get to know your system, to know where your open players are going to be, and you need to truly build attacks rather than just, you know, being able to meander through into midfield or just play a pass straight through the lines, really, because there's so much open space and you're not being pressured enough. So if we compare that with the previous value of 62, we'll notice that the opposition aren't necessarily higher up the field in terms of their positions, but they are going to be pressing far less intensely from those positions. So that's really what this value changes, how intensely the opposition press from the positions rather than the positions that they take up themselves. And you'll see that they're pressing far less intensely on 62. We have a lot more time on the ball, we're able to pick our passes far more easily, and we're able to break down the opposition with really 2, 3, maybe 4 simple passes, whereas before we were forced to turn back towards our goal, forced to recycle, forced to begin the attack over and over again because of that intense pressure high up the field. And even when we do lose the ball in our own half, there's so little support from the CPU teammates that it's no issue. And the good news is that 90 line height isn't going to completely override any custom tactics. If we take a look at another game, we'll see that Crystal Palace are a team that don't set up as high up the pitch. They don't press as aggressively as Liverpool. And against Crystal Palace, we have far more time on the ball, as you would expect. They're setting up more in their own half rather than, inside our half and pressing us on the edge of our penalty area. So the custom tactics will still play a part. Teams will still play differently, even on the 90 line height. It just means that those teams with high pressing tactics, they will be pressing you right up the pitch. Those teams who sit back a little deeper, they will begin to press you when you enter their half. There is one more slider that needs to be adjusted for the user, and that is to bring fullback positioning from 25 back to 20. And that is just to have those fullbacks and particularly wingbacks just sitting a little deeper in positions to pick the ball up rather than venturing too high up the field and stepping on the toes of your midfielders or even your wingers. The final slider that needs to be adjusted is for the CPU, and that's to bring shot error back 2 ticks from 80 to 78. I just noticed there were a few too many shots off target with the previous value. The CPU were getting into good positions and they simply weren't scoring from them. So bringing that back just a little bit will hopefully increase the shots on target, force the goalkeeper to make a few more saves, and hopefully result in a few more goals. This to some extent is personal preference. You can move this up and down as you please. I'd stick roughly in the kind of range that we've got it here, but if you're noticing too many goals being scored, bump it up 1 or 2 ticks. If you're noticing too many shots off target, pull it back a couple more ticks, as long as you're in this kind of range. But 78 I think is a decent spot. So just to summarize, the final slider set would be for the user. You want sprint speed at 5, acceleration 50, shot error should be at 50 also, pass error you want down at 25 if you are using manual. But remember, if you are using assists, passing assists, crossing assists, those kinds of things, you do want to bump this up. I went over this in the initial video, so go back and check that out if you are unsure. Shot speed should be 51, pass speed 36, injury frequency 90 but severity 25, goalkeeper ability should be 62, position marking should be 50, run frequency 35, line height for the user at 90, 32 for the length and 52 for the width, fullback positioning for the user at 20, power bar is personal preference but I like it at 62, and then first touch control error for the user at 50. CPU sliders should be similar but slightly different in places. Same sprint speed and acceleration, but shot error and pass error of course need to be much higher because the CPU can't help but assist themselves. So 78 for shot error, 80 for pass error. Shot speed 51, pass speed 36. All these are the same. Injury frequency, injury severity, goalkeeper ability, marking, run frequency, line height, line length, line width. All of these are the same. Fullback positioning for the CPU can be default at 50, and then the first touch control error maxed out at 100 for the CPU. So those are the updates for the sliders. I use this slider set in my Road to Glory Career Mode series with my created club Redmont Rangers. There's a full playlist of the series on the channel, and I'll be uploading that pretty much daily going forward, so I would appreciate it if you check that out. Drop a like and subscribe if you like this video and you want to see more content like this in the future. And as always, I appreciate you checking out the video. Hope to see you in the next one. Take it easy.